All rise. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Supreme Court of Florida is now in ceremonial session. All who have cause to plead, draw near, give attention, you shall be heard. God save these United States, the great state of Florida, and his honorable court. Ladies and gentlemen, Supreme Court of Florida, please be seated.
No, please stand. I'm sorry. I'd like to ask you to remain standing because we are right now going to begin today's events with the Pledge of Allegiance. To lead us in the pledge, the court now recognizes Julia and Jacob Luck and Robert, William, and Lydia Muniz to lead us in the pledge. Now you may be seated. I now recognize Kimberly Case for a rendition of America the Beautiful.
For spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties, above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed his grace on thee. From sea to shining sea, oh beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. Shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
It is now my honor to ask Rabbi Shneur Zalman Orichman to come to the podium and give the invocation. Rabbi.
Thank you. I really like how you said Zalman, like Yiddish. It's a very nice pronunciation. Thank you. I always like to begin with an act of charity, act of goodness and kindness. And I usually would bring a charity box, except the charity box I had with me this morning in the cabinet meeting, I gave it to President Galvano. So there you go. I mean, you multiply, you give it back to me like 100, right? Almighty God, judge of all the earth, we humbly stand before you today with belief in your justice and gratitude for your belief in us. As we assemble to effect the continuity of our Supreme Court, we are cognizant of the mighty task you have entrusted to man, to stand for what is right, to work every day for good, to be your partner in bringing justice to your world. For you could have created your world perfect, yet you formed it broken, and then you charge us to repair it. That is why you gave us your laws, and that is why we honor and uphold our courts of law today and every day. So today, with the investiture of our Supreme Court judges, Judge Robert Locke and Judge Carlos Muniz, we start a new day in the great state of Florida. We invoke the Noahide Code bestowed by you upon civilization at the new dawn of man. Almighty God, today more than ever, we recognize the need for your universal foundation of basic morality that underlies everything. The recognition of a Creator, to not curse our Creator, to not murder, to maintain the moralities of intimacy, to not steal, to not eat a living creature, and to establish court of justice. This 7-part charge given by you to Noah of old is as real now as it was then. For when we are alert to your benevolence, when we each surrender to your loving care, there is trust from man to God. When there is trust, there is peace within man. When there is peace within man, there is peace between men. And when there is peace between men, there is justice on earth. Let us be ever aware of your guiding presence. In moment of uncertainty, let us pause and consider you, who created all and who put us here to make your world a better place in preparation for the coming of the redemption. Almighty God, bestow your bountiful blessings on the Honorable Robert Locke and Carlos Muniz, who have risen to our High Court, and the entire august body of the Florida Supreme Court. Endow them with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, that they may always dispense true justice to the people and do right by you. Bless our Honorable Governor, Ron DeSantis, and the First Lady, and our great cabinet with leadership and strength. Bless the distinguished jurists, legislators, and servants of the public trust who join us here today. And bless all of their families who sacrifice so much so that their beloved spouses, parents, sons, and daughters might serve the greater good. As we sound the shofar to herald the Jewish New Year, let there be a clarion call across the great state of Florida to heed God's loving call of partnership. For God could have done it all without our hard work, but He chose to take us as partner to heal this broken world and prepare it for the coming of the redemption. May our every effort to repair our world be answered by God Himself, as our ultimate partner in heaven finally comes home for good with the coming of the redemption. And let us say, Amen. Amen. And I'm going to be blowing the shofar. Now the cabinet, I told the cabinet members and the governor that usually in the synagogue, this Monday, in the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah, and Tuesday, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, we're going to be blowing the shofar 100 blows. I told the governor and the cabinet that I'm not going to take their time, so I only did 10, but fortunately, or unfortunately, you're here, so I'm going to do the other 90 now. No, just 10. Thank you. Now can I have my hand back?
Thank you, Rabbi. Today marks an event that is a milestone in this court's history, the investiture on the same day of 2 new justices. Since this court first convened in 1846, shortly after statehood, we have had 87 installations of a new justice to sit on the highest court in Florida. Today, you will watch the 88th and 89th investitures in a history that now stretches back more than 170 years. Today, the court will ceremonially seat here at the bench Robert J. Luck and Carlos G. Muniz, our dear friends and valued colleagues. They formally assume their places among the jurists who have shaped this state's legal history. Now, we are deeply honored today to be joined by Governor Ron DeSantis, who appointed Justice Luck and Muniz last year. We are also honored that our First Lady, Casey DeSantis, is with us for this occasion. We are honored as well by the presence today of many esteemed members of the executive branch and the legislature. Also joining us are many judges of the county, circuit, and district courts, along with members of the federal judiciary. As you can certainly see by looking around the room, our notable guests are too numerous to name one by one. We thank you all for coming to this special event. As we proceed with today's program, I would like to remind everyone that this is a ceremonial session of the court. It makes it a little different than an ordinary court session. All of you in our audience should feel free to applaud or stand when the Spirit moves you. That's not encouraged in an ordinary court session. It's quite discouraged. You should even feel free to snap some photos to make your own record of today's proceedings. This is meant to be a joyous, celebratory occasion. And with that, I'll now turn to the starting point, the reason we are all here today. The chief purpose of an investiture is for the governor of the state of Florida to come here to the court and present the new justice's credentials to the Chief Justice. The transfer of credentials is the point when the governor's appointment authority has been fully manifested by handing off the official papers to the Supreme Court. In effect, the governor hands off his new appointees to the judiciary for their service on the Florida Supreme Court. And so it is now my honor to invite Governor Ron DeSantis to come to the podium for his remarks and then to approach me here at the bench for the presentation of the credentials of both justices.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, and it's great to be here. Congratulations to our 2 justices, but I do have to say congratulations to one of our current justices, Justice Lagoa, and then one of the ones we're honoring here today, Justice Luck, for being chosen yet again to serve on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. So congratulations to both of you for that honor. White House called and asked if I would be disappointed if they plucked 2 of my picks, and I said, absolutely not. Put good people on the court, and that's what we want to see in the federal judiciary as well. But I do think this means that, Mr. Chief Justice, I will see you probably next year for 2 more of these, so we're ready. And as we were doing this, and we knew this was going to happen for a long time, but then with their nominations for the 11th Circuit, knew I was going to have vacancies, started to think back kind of, okay, what am I looking for going forward? And maybe reflect on what we looked for back in January when we made these decisions. And there's probably no better place to start than reading what Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist number 78. He made very clear that in a system of separated powers, the judicial branch has neither force, which is the executive, nor will, which is the legislative body, but merely judgment. And it's that judgment, applying the law and applying the Constitution as written, that is so important. And because they have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, Hamilton said that the judges are the weakest of the 3 branches of government, and that's all consistently cited, is that they're the weakest of the 3, they can't defend themselves, so on and so forth. But what's usually not mentioned is he also put in that essay they're the weakest so long as the judiciary remains distinct from the legislature and distinct from the executive. And I think that the challenge of looking at what makes a good judge is to find the judges that understand the difference between applying judgment and exercising legislative will. And Hamilton made clear that there may be times when an act of the legislature must fall because it conflicts with the Constitution. But that's not because the judiciary is superior to the legislature. It's simply because the Constitution is superior to both. But understanding that is something that's very, very significant. And so I think both of these justices here, had qualities that really made them stand out. The first is, you really do at this level, when you're at a court of a last resort, you need to have a very strong intellect. And there's buzzwords that get thrown around about judicial restraint and separation and all that. And look, I'd rather people saying those buzzwords than not do it. But do you understand what is deeper than that? Do you understand kind of the rhythms of a constitutional system? Do you understand checks and balances? Do you understand that, beneath simply the superficial words that you may say in an interview or that you may have read in an essay? And I think both of these justices clearly had a deep understanding of our system of government. They understood the proper role of the judiciary. It clearly was a result of a lot of study, but it was basically instinctive. And so you knew when issues would come before them, that they were going to be deciding that based on their reasoned judgment, but they were not want to exercise legislative will. And I think the reason why is the second thing I look for is, understanding the separation of powers, not just on a piece of paper, but understanding how when the separation of powers is honored, our personal freedoms and liberty are more secure. And when the separation of powers is not, when courts exercise legislative judgment, when executives exercise legislative, when legislatures go beyond their bounds, all of that makes our freedoms less secure. And so having justices that understand that is absolutely critical. And it kind of falls to the third thing that I looked for is, okay, you're smart, you understand kind of this whole system and your role in that system. But the third thing is, do you have the humility to know that your role is important, but it is limited? And I think there's sometimes people put on that black robe and all of a sudden they think that they can solve the world's problems. And I'll tell you, there may be cases that come before you where departing from the law or the Constitution may yield a better result. There's times when applying the law as written doesn't yield the best result. I may disagree with the result. You may. The justices may disagree with it. But the more you depart thinking that you can engineer or solve problems from the bench, I think the more the separation of powers is eroded, and I think ultimately the rule of law is harmed. So having that humility to know that this is an important job, but it is a limited job, and by defending the limited nature of the court, you really are fortifying the entire constitutional system. And so I think both of these justices clearly did that. Justice Luck, it seems like, I think probably from the time he was like a baby, people thought he'd be a judge, it seems like. He's really born to do this. Clearly has a passion for it. I don't think I heard a single negative comment about him ever for anything. It's just like everyone that had been associated with him, and not just people who believe that he has a good judicial philosophy. People probably on the other side, they all admitted this is a guy who's honorable, he's conscientious, he's smart, hardworking, and I think obviously he's made this court better, and I think he's going to continue on and do a very good job in the 11th Circuit. And I think Justice Muniz, the experience that he's had at different levels of government, I think is very, very useful when you're on a court of last resort. Because when you talk about understanding the separation of powers, you're looking at somebody that's been involved in the different branches of government. And probably he had, I think, a better understanding of the Florida system of government than probably anybody I interviewed. And I remember just talking, because he had worked for this person, that person. He worked for Governor Bush. and Bush said that that's the smartest guy that's ever worked for me. I mean, that says a lot, because Jeb's had a lot of great people, come through, and I think you see that. It was readily apparent. This is somebody who really had strong intellect, and I think is a great addition to the court. So it's an honor for me to have been a part of that and make the appointments. I appreciate your service already. Look forward to continued service from Justice Muniz, and eventually, you'll be setting sails for the 11th Circuit. I did ask, what's the timeline? I think the timeline's going to be pretty quick, so you guys get ready to be confirmed. I think they want to get you out by the end of the year, so we'll be ready to go on our end to backfill the court, and we'll make it happen. But truly an honor to be a part of the process that's yielded two really strong public servants who really understand what the Constitution and rule of law are all about. And so with that, I'd ask the Chief Justice for permission to approach the bench, and so I can deliver these great documents.
Please approach. The court now recognizes the president of the Florida Bar, John M. Stewart, to go to the podium for remarks and to make a presentation.
Chief Justice Kennedy, members of the court, distinguished guests, family and friends, and of course, Justices Luck and Muniz. It's my honor to carry on the tradition as president of the Florida Bar in presenting the justices with the Bible during this investiture, a tradition which is believed to have formally begun in 1971. In so doing, I'd like to leave you with a very brief quote that is my favorite expression of the meaning of lawyers, judges, and the rule of law in a civilized society. The quote is from John William Davis, who served as Solicitor General of the United States under President Woodrow Wilson. Mr. Davis stated, "True, we build no bridges, we raise no towers, we construct no engines. We paint no pictures unless as amateurs for our own principal amusement. There's little of all that we do which the eye of man can see. But we smooth out difficulties, we relieve stress, we correct mistakes. We take up other men's burdens, and by our efforts, we make possible the peaceful life of men in a peaceful state." So on behalf of the Florida Bar and our over 107,000 members, we congratulate the both of you. We wish you the best wishes for most continuing rewarding judicial careers. So if I may, Justice Luck and Justice Muniz, I can only do one of these at a time. Justice Luck, alphabetically.
Well, thank you, President Stewart. The court will now recognize the Honorable Rodolfo A. Ruiz II of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida to come to the podium and give remarks. Judge?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Justice. Before I started, I didn't know that I could bring instruments. You didn't tell me that I could have brought maybe something from home. Chief Justice Kennedy, distinguished justices of the Florida Supreme Court, Chief Judge Carnes, dignitaries, members of Florida's cabinet, friends and family, welcome everyone to the annual Robert Luck Investiture. I did the math, and it appears that Robert moves to a new court every few years, so this has become a little bit of a tradition. And as the governor just pointed out, we all know it's highly unlikely that this will be Justice Luck's last investiture, given his recent nomination to the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. But we're here today to celebrate his appointment to this honorable court. It's our state's highest court, and it's a momentous occasion for all of us as Floridians. because today we celebrate the ascension of a native son. 5 generations of the Luck family have lived in Florida. He is a product of our public elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as a very proud graduate of the University of Florida, where he attended both college and law school, and graduated at the top of his class and served as editor-in-chief of the Florida Law Review. Few jurists have greater respect, admiration, and appreciation for the history of our state, its legal traditions, and the critical role that the Florida Supreme Court plays in preserving the rule of law and ensuring due process for all Floridians. Justice Luck's respect for Florida jurisprudence can be found in his prolific writing. From numerous published opinions in only 8 months as a jurist on this court, to 80 published opinions during his tenure on the Florida 3rd District Court of Appeal. Not to mention numerous published opinions as a circuit appellate judge and well over 100 civil and criminal orders as a trial court judge in the 11th Judicial Circuit of Florida. In preparation for today, I went back and reread many of these opinions, which is no small feat. Upon doing so, it does not take long for common denominators to emerge. Clarity and simplicity without losing meaning, accessibility by way of thorough analysis, the proper application of precedent, scrutiny of text, whether it be contract, statute, or constitutional provision, an abiding sense, and the governor mentioned it, of judicial humility, and when necessary, dissent before the compromise of first principles. It is no surprise that many of these qualities are espoused by the opinions and judicial philosophy of his mentor, Chief Judge Carnes of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, a jurist Robert credits for shaping his approach to the law, and for whom Robert served as a law clerk and staff attorney for 3 years. And like Chief Judge Carnes, Justice Luck's opinions come with style as well. They contain a dose of wit with their wisdom. Just listen to these excerpts, which I will call Justice Luck's greatest hits. From Deauville Hotel Management, LLC versus Ward, and I quote, "Chapel of Love, the tune made famous by the Dixie Cups, celebrates how a couple's wedding day should feel like. Spring is here, the sky is blue, birds all sing as if they knew, bells will ring, the sun will shine, I'll be his and he'll be mine." The birds, however, did not sing and the bells did not ring on Camisa Ward's wedding day. The hotel ballroom where she planned to have her wedding reception was closed by the city of Miami Beach, and the hotel moved the reception to its lobby. Ward's wedding day was ruined, and she and her husband sued the hotel that hosted and catered the wedding for breach of contract and intentional infliction of emotional distress. From DePrince versus Starboard Cruise Services, an opinion ultimately vacated by Wayman and Bonk opinion, authored by then Judge Luck, which clarified the 3rd District's approach to the elements required for unilateral mistake, and I quote, "In the 1932 movie Night After Night, a cloakroom attendant comments to Mae West on her ring, 'Goodness, what a lovely diamond.' Mae West in her first movie role responds, 'Goodness had nothing to do with it.' Goodness, too, had nothing to do with how Thomas DePrince bought his 20-carat diamond. Through a comedy of errors and an email miscommunication, a cruise line jewelry shop sold the 20-carat diamond to DePrince for 1/20th of its retail value. And most recently, in re amendments to the Florida Evidence Code, Justice Luck invoked one of the most sacred and treasured pieces of American cinematography, the 1978 classic National Lampoon's Animal House, when he wrote, and I quote, "Like the little-known codicil in the Faber College Constitution, the concurring opinion cites Section 2G1 of our internal operating procedures, which provides that the court in its own motion may adopt or amend rules." So suffice to say, it is clear that Robert has accomplished what Justice Clarence Thomas has often referred to as the beauty of writing. The genius, as Justice Thomas is known as saying, is not to write a 5-cent idea in a $10 sentence. It's to put a $10 idea in a 5-cent sentence. I can safely say that Justice Luck often accomplishes this lofty goal when he puts pen to paper. In fact, sometimes he can squeeze a $20 idea into a 5-cent sentence. So it's no surprise that I, along with many of my fellow judges here this afternoon, always enjoyed visiting the 3rd District Court of Appeal website during his tenure around 11 a.m. on Wednesdays to see if we would get a Luck opinion. And we continue to do that today, except now we head over to the Florida Supreme Court website around the same time on Thursdays. And that's the hallmark of a judge's judge. We know that if we're getting reversed by Robert, we probably got it wrong. And we know that in shaping the law of Florida, he has looked at the issues before him from every angle. He has thought through every hypothetical. And he has approached a decision-making process driven by the need to make his opinions clear and accessible to all Floridians. I, for one, thought that my days of having Robert check my work were over. But it doesn't appear that he can stay away from correcting my errors, but I am very grateful for that anyway. Now, let me be clear, there is way more to Justice Robert Luck than his writing. He is an incredible friend and colleague, as I know many in this courtroom will attest. Stories about his hard work, dedication, and kindness are legion. For me, two come to mind immediately over the past 7 years that I've had the pleasure of getting to know him and becoming close to him. First is the memory of a rainy night in Miami, late night in Miami, and hearing a knock on the door of the hospital room where my wife and I were staying with our newborn son, only to open the door and see Justice Luck soaked, carrying a small teddy bear as a gift. He had come from the courthouse, where he had helped cover my criminal hearings that day, and still found time to stop by and see how we were doing. Family and friends matter to Justice Robert Luck. My second memory is sitting next to Robert in a judicial conference when he turned to me sweating. Now, I know my dear friend Robert Luck, and I know he sweats. But this was different. He said to me, "Rudy, I just got an opponent." And our fears were realized. Someone had decided to run against Robert in his first election cycle as a new circuit court judge. I did what any friend would do. I told him we needed to leave the conference room and go to the hotel bar immediately. And it was there that I watched his initial shock turn to steely resolve. There was a campaign to run, and it would not come at the expense of the quality of his judicial work. I, recognizing the challenge ahead and the voting demographics in Miami-Dade County, attempted my best to inject a bit of levity into the moment, suggesting we change his name to Roberto Suerte. I figured if we did that and we got on Spanish radio right away, we might be okay. The reality is, short of changing his name, Robert literally did everything in his power to win the election. From community associations to churches, breakfasts to gala dinners, he crisscrossed the county and ultimately prevailed. It's no surprise that in his chambers at this very moment is a framed photo of him dancing with a little old lady at a municipal meeting, because it is a fond reminder of how hard he worked to retain his seat. Now, he did go to sleep before the election results came in, which stunned all of us who are close to him. And we did nickname him Eeyore midway through the election cycle for his eternal pessimism, because he often thought he would somehow lose. But the bottom line is he gave it all he had because he loves to serve the people of this great state, and public service is his calling. By the way, the Wednesday morning after his hard-fought victory, he started a trial. Because at no point during his campaign did Justice Luck cancel a calendar or continue a hearing. Somehow, some way, he worked harder than ever. Stories like mine are common when it comes to Robert. Take his former Chief Judge, the 11th Judicial Circuit, Bertila Soto. She notes, and I quote, "Bobby is humble. You would never know that behind that sweet smile lies incredible intellect, fierce loyalty, and generosity. He was always willing to help teach and back up his colleagues, even when he left us to the 3rd DCA and now the Supreme Court. He has returned to attend our investitures and judicial receptions. I only have a daughter, but if I had a son, I would ask for Bobby." Judge Nushin Safe, the administrative judge of the 11th Circuit's Criminal Division, recalls that upon sending out emails asking for help covering a hearing or trial, she always had to call Justice Luck to tell him he could not respond to her email for at least an hour because he was always the first to volunteer. Her best memory goes back to the summer of 2016 when, as I mentioned, Justice Luck was campaigning while covering his own division full-time. Nushin's sister had recently been diagnosed with cancer, and Robert regularly stopped by her chambers and home to ask how she was doing. In the midst of one of Robert's most challenging events in his life, he was worried and concerned about a dear friend. Judge Safi said it best: "We all agree that he is a brilliant judge, but we love him because he is such a loyal, caring, and reliable friend." Robert is not just loyal to his friends, he's also an outstanding father, husband, and son. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Joey Luck, who I've had the opportunity to meet, are incredibly kind and supportive. Without their love through the years, we would not be here today. His incredible wife of 15 years, Jen, a successful professional and amazing mother, has been by Robert's side throughout his accomplished career, including the move to Montgomery, Alabama, and now to Tallahassee, Florida, always supporting his judicial journey. Jen notes that despite reaching our state's highest court, Robert has always maintained his humility. In fact, Jen has always said that although he is, quote, the smartest person she knows, he is humble enough to ask anyone a question for clarification, even to our 10 and 13-year-old children. And the kids always love it when they know something Robert doesn't know. Not only does he ask them questions regularly, but he also has the patience to sit and listen to our son Jacob while he describes all the plays of the latest Dolphins game. I'm so sorry, Jacob, because there's not a lot of things to talk about anymore. And he also loves to listen to his daughter Julia discussing the details of how she tripped on a branch at summer camp. His faith, as Jen puts it, has guided him to want to be the best father, husband, judge, and friend to all around him. He constantly pushes himself to be better than the day before. The kids and I love spending time with him, but the only thing he doesn't know, and I think he pretty much knows everything, is that the kids and I think he is perfect. And despite all the hard work and dedication in his vocation as a jurist, Robert always finds time to be with his family, especially his children, Jacob and Julia, who serve as a source of strength and happiness in his life. His son Jacob told me that he loves it when he comes to my baseball games and throws the ball with me whenever I want to. He always takes me to sports games and loves spending time with me. And when I asked for thoughts from his daughter Julia on this special day, she said what literally every one of Robert's colleagues has said. I can't believe you're having another investiture. She went on to say, and I quote, I am so happy for you and I can't ask for a better dad. You work so hard and I love spending time with you, from late at night playing board games to you jumping in the pool with me the second you come home from a flight. I love you so much and I hope you have the best day ever. So now you've heard how hardworking a jurist Justice Luck is. You've heard about the kind of amazing friend and colleague he is, and the incredible husband and father he is, and son. You'd think there's not much time for anything else, but you would be wrong. For years, I have wondered, when does the man sleep? Because when he's not participating in oral argument, presiding over cases, and writing opinions, he dedicates his time and energy to committees and to teaching. He has served as vice chair of the Florida Bar Appellate Rules Committee, taught trial judges around the state about a range of issues, from developments in death penalty litigation to opinion writing and insurance law. And during his time on the Florida Supreme Court, has been appointed to serve on Florida's Children and Youth Cabinet, and has also been appointed court liaison to the Standard Jury Instructions Committee on Civil Jury Instructions, Contract and Business Jury Instructions, and the Appellate Court Rules Committee. Again, his dedication, quite simply, is second to none. He does this because he loves the legal system. As our friend, Judge Miguel de la O, notes, his humility about his abilities is welcome but unjustified. The only thing Robert should be humble about, the only thing in which he's truly mediocre, is fantasy football. But Miguel, I will note that Justice Luck beat you 132-96 last week, so he really is good at everything. In conclusion, I want to thank Governor Ron DeSantis for appointing my dear friend Justice Robert Luck to the Florida Supreme Court. The day I got the call that Robert was joining this amazing group of jurists, I felt as if I had been appointed myself. And as I sat in the Sheikh Hillel Community School with the Luck family back in January of this year, watching the governor make his announcement accompanied by the First Lady and our Attorney General, I was overjoyed. Not only because I know just how special and gifted a jurist he is, but because as a Floridian, I know just how important this court is for the everyday people of our state. Robert, never forget that your community and state admire and love you. Florida is willing to eventually share you with Georgia and Alabama, but you'll always be our 88th justice. Congratulations, my friend, and Godspeed.
Thank you, Judge Ruiz. I now call upon the Honorable Ed Carnes, Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, to approach the podium for remarks and then to administer the oath of office to Robert J. Luck. We are delighted to welcome the Chief Judge here today for this special occasion. Judge.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Chief Justice, members of the court, other distinguished guests, and folks everywhere. I want to start by saying, Fred, I brought my copy of the oath. If you haven't heard that, ask Fred. I'm sure he'll be glad to tell you. One thing that I didn't get told when Robert asked me to do this is that I would be following Rudy in the program. You're stretching our friendship there. In spite of that, I'm delighted to be at yet another investiture of Robert Luck. It was my privilege to attend the 2013 investiture and to administer the oath of office to him in that ceremony after he was appointed to be a judge of the 11th Judicial Circuit of Florida. It was my privilege to again attend an investiture in 2017 and administer the oath of office to him after he was appointed to the 3rd DCA. Now I have the privilege of attending this investiture and administering the oath of office to him once more because he's been appointed to the Florida Supreme Court. 3 times, Robert, it's the same oath. I keep thinking maybe this one will stick. Let's put it this way. In the last 6 years, he seems to have had some difficulty holding down a job. But he has promised me this is, wait a minute, that's an earlier version of it. Gotta keep revising with Robert. If I may be serious for a moment, and there's a first time for everything, I want to acknowledge that it is true in the last 6 years that Robert Luck has had an extraordinary number of opportunities. He's been blessed with them to render judicial service. But the reason he has been is that he's an extraordinary person. He has earned and deserved every one of those opportunities. He was a superb AUSA, and he's been a superb judge on every court on which he has served. No judge is more conscientious, no judge works harder, and no judge is more dedicated to the rule of law than he is. That's why it's such an honor for me to participate today. Before I administer the oath, I want to comment briefly on the importance of the oath under Florida law. It is important, and it is mandated by the Florida Constitution. Article 3, Section 5 requires that all judicial officers take and properly execute the oath of office set out in that provision. A half-century ago, the Florida Supreme Court issued a decision that talked about the oath and the importance of it. It stressed that the oath of office is not just a technical nicety, but instead serves an important purpose. The court explained, and I'm quoting, "The exercise of sovereign power is constitutionally restricted to those who meet the constitutional requirements, and only to those. The taking of the oath and the issuing of the formal commission not only constitute the official conveyance to the recipients of a portion of the state's sovereign power, but also serves to impress upon the appointee the great public trust and confidence which is placed in him by his appointment." Now, as you probably know, and I get some questions about this occasionally, Justice Luck actually assumed the office and began exercising the authority of a Florida Supreme Court justice months ago, in fact, in January. He was able to do that because he actually took the oath of office earlier this year in January in a small private ceremony. It was attended only by his family and a few high public officials. And that's the way it sounded at the oath. I tell you what, when I raise my hand, if you could repeat that at a key point, 2 points, that'd be great. So why do we do this? Why do we take the private oath and then months later repeat it in a public ceremony? Well, the reason for taking the private oath as fast as you can, there are at least 3 of them. One is that when you take the oath, it's too late for the governor to change his mind. True. Clarence Thomas told me before I left Washington to get my commission signed because they couldn't take it back after that. And it's the same thing on the state. Number 2, not inconsequential, you want to get on the payroll, which is usually higher, of the new position. Number 3, I can't remember. Oh, yeah, number 3, so you can start doing the duties that you've been appointed to do, carrying out your office. But then why take it again today? Why do we do that? The reason for doing it again in this public ceremony is that the oath of office contains promises that the office holder is making to the public. The promises the oath contains are about how he will perform the duties of his office and about what he will support, protect, and defend while in offices. The promises in the oath are not just to his family and to high public officials. They are made to the public, to all citizens of the state. They are made to you. Please keep that in mind as you listen to the promises that Justice Luck reiterates by taking the oath of office again here today. Robert. Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
of Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida,
of Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida,
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
The marshal will now escort Justice Luck to his seat at the bench of the Florida Supreme Court. I am now pleased to recognize Justice Robert J. Luck for his response.
I should really scrap this given the given the roast, but I'll say what I wrote down. Rabbi Orchman, President Stewart, Chief Judge Carnes, and my brother, Judge Ruiz, thank you for your beautiful words. You have made this day special by being here today. Thank you all. At my first investiture, I said how rare it is in life for a person to have a public opportunity to tell his family and friends and classmates and colleagues and mentors and loved ones how much they mean to him, how appreciative he is for all of their help, how he couldn't have done it without them. Rarer still is to have a second opportunity to say thank you. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, I know I'm standing between you and those small pastry-wrapped hot dogs that everyone loves. I don't want to let the opportunity pass me by. I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know if I'll ever have another chance to say thank you for making me the person I am today, for your support during the Florida Supreme Court application process, and for your help the last 9 months as a justice on this great court. Before I do anything else, though, let me thank everyone for being here today. When Justice Muniz and I decided to have this joint investiture, of course we thought it would be more convenient for court staff and for colleagues and mutual friends to have one rather than two events. But a big part of our thinking was, I'm not sure either of us could fill this room on our own. but we are blown away by all of our friends and family that have made the trip to be here today. Dean Linsky, one of my favorite and best professors from law school, came from Missouri. Carolyn Martin, one of the assistant state attorneys who practiced in my criminal court division, came from Texas. And Michael Sevi, a high school friend, and a big part of the reason why I was ever appointed to anything, came from New York. Justice Muniz and I are so grateful for all of you being here. We will spend the next days, months, and years thanking you for your friendship and for your support. Whatever good qualities I have or that you see in me, I owe them to some special men and women in my life. Mom and Dad, thank you for teaching me through your daily example how to be a loving and supportive spouse and parent, and that success only comes through study, hard work, sacrifice, and treating people the way that you want to be treated. I can only hope that Jen and I have as happy a 40 years together as you've had. Jen, thank you for being my best friend and my partner in all things. Anything good that has ever happened in our lives is because you made it happen, with your support, with your encouragement, with your advice, and as Rudy said, your willingness to move to Gainesville, to Montgomery, to Miami, and to Tallahassee. Julie and Jacob are kind and decent, and they will be kind and decent adults because they have you as a mother. And thank goodness they look like you too. Thank you to the many friends from North Miami Beach and the University of Florida that made the trip to Tallahassee. They are successful lawyers and doctors and businessmen and women, and I am so proud of their accomplishments. I thank them for sharing this day with me like they have for all the important moments in my life. I thank Chief Judge Ed Carnes, who gave me my first job out of law school. Just as my parents taught me how to be a good person, husband, and father, Judge Carnes, your lifetime of service, your faithful adherence to the rule of law, and your tireless preparation and study have taught me what it means to be a judge. If I am half as good at my job as you are at your job, then I know I will have had a judicial career that you will be proud of. And Judge, I don't care what de Gaulle said, you are irreplaceable. I thank the women and men of the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, many of whom made the trip here today. These talented attorneys have given up the riches of private practice so that they can help protect our state and do justice in every case. They, more than anyone, taught me how to be a lawyer, and I am proud to have been a member of the best federal prosecutor's office in the country. For 6 years, I served side by side with the circuit and district judges of this state. They are dedicated and hardworking public servants who make sure that the hundreds of thousands of cases pending in the state of Florida are heard efficiently and fairly. It is no coincidence that half the federal bench in Florida, including Judge Ruiz, and our Attorney General, our Secretary of State, our Secretary of Juvenile Justice, are alums of the state trial and appellate bench. Whatever successes I have as a justice will be in large part because of what I learned from my circuit and district court brothers and sisters. Now, I owe a debt of gratitude that I can never repay to the countless men and women who were involved in the appointment process. First among them is the governor. Governor DeSantis, I can never thank you enough for the trust you have placed in me and the faith you had in me to be a justice on this great court. With you by my side, I swore in January, and I reaffirm today that, as Judge Carnes said, that above all things, I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of this great state and the United States of America. And I swear to everybody here that I will keep that oath for every second that I serve on this great court. I know, Governor, that you have a long career ahead of you, and it is much too soon to talk about your legacy, but at least 2 young kids who live in the Luck House think you are the greatest governor in the history of the state. Filling 3 vacancies on the Florida Supreme Court at one time is not only an unprecedented thing, it's an almost impossible task for a new administration to take on. I am thankful for all the brilliant lawyers and officials that helped Governor DeSantis with the appointment process. Governor DeSantis' general counsel, and really the general counsels for past governors, have helped our chief executives make hundreds of judicial appointments that have made our state court bench one of the strongest in the country. I and all Floridians are forever in debt to the wisdom and counsel of Paul Huck, Jason Gonzalez, Charlie Trippi, Pete Antonacci, Tim Serio, Will Spicola, Dan Nordby, Jack Heekin, Nick Primrose, John McIver, Ben Gibson, and Joe Jaco. We must also thank the judicial nominating commissioners throughout the state for the high quality of our judicial branch. These busy and successful members of the bar spend hundreds of hours without pay, without fanfare, vetting and interviewing judicial applicants so that we have the best and brightest serving on our bench. I am indebted to the hard work of Hala Sandrich, Cynthia Angelos, Izzy Reyes, Nilda Pedrosa, Jesse Panuccio, Jason Unger, Fred Karlinski, Jeannie Tate, and Heather Stearns. And we are all indebted to the JNC members throughout the state, past and present, for their service and their sacrifice. Thank you to George Lemieux, Carlos Trujillo, Alan Kluger, John Coriel, Chris Keyes, Doug Bates, Scott Wagner, Manny Cadre, Richard Perillo, Judge Roy Altman, Judge Federico Moreno, Ariana Fajardo-Orshan, David Seifer, Adam Fosslett, and dozens, literally dozens of others who took time out of their lives to talk with me about the appointment process and made calls and wrote letters on my behalf. My appointment is more a testament to the respect that you hold than it is anything that I have ever done. There's one last person that I must thank who made today possible, and that is Senator Rick Scott. I thank Senator Scott for appointing me to the circuit and district courts. I am forever grateful for the faith he had that I could be a good trial and appellate judge, and I hope that he is proud of what I am and what I have been. Now, I've served on this great court for the last 9 months, and if I've done anything right in that time, it's because the faithful public servants who work in this building have made me look a lot better than I am. Anyone that has filed papers with the court or needs information knows how efficient John Tomasino and his team are. And anyone who has been inside this building knows how secure and well run it is by our Marshal, Sylvester Dawson, and his deputies. The dozens of clerks and deputy marshals and librarians and attorneys who work here are the ones who make this great court run as it does and thrive as it has. We thank them all for their service to this state and especially to the judicial branch. I need to especially thank my own court family, my judicial assistant, Betsy Johansson, and my staff attorneys, Zach Lawton, Rashid Nader, and Jeremy Rosner, and some former members of my court family who are here, Marissa Diaz and Michelle Edelstein. Whatever good things I've done as a judge and justice, it is in large part because of their patience, hard work, sunny demeanor, and brilliant minds. They are a joy to work with, and they make it a pleasure to come to the office every single day. Finally, I need to thank my colleagues. One of the enduring images from the last 9 months was actually my first day at the court, January 15th of this year. I opened up those gigantic steel doors, I walked up those steps for the first time through the security and into the rotunda. And standing there with a huge smile on his face was Justice Polston. His arms were wide open and he said, "I am so glad you're here." I at least got one laugh, I'll take that. And that's how it's been every single day since then. Chief Justice Kennedy and Justice Polston, Justice Labarga, and Justice Lawson have welcomed the three of us with open arms. They have rearranged schedules, taken on extra work, and have constantly been there to answer questions and help when we've needed it. Time goes on and memories fade, but I will never forget their kindness and sacrifices they made so that our first months on the court would be a little bit easier than they had when they started. I cannot imagine working with a brighter and more selfless group of public servants. Justice Lagoa, I followed you at Greenberg, I followed you at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I followed you at the 3rd District, and I followed you here. No, I promise I'm not stalking. I don't know what our future holds, but there is no one I'd rather share this journey with than you and Paul. I wouldn't be here without the two of you. Justice Muniz, Katie, Robert, William, and Lydia, I know the back's to you, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting my family share this day with your family. We are so blessed to have you in our lives, and I am so blessed to have Justice Muniz as a colleague and a lifelong friend. I couldn't be happier to have a front row seat today for his beginning as one of the greatest justices in the history of this court. Thank you. Luck. We now will move on to the second investiture in today's ceremony. At this time, the court recognizes Timothy M. Serio of the Board of Governors of the State University System of Florida for remarks.
Thank you, Chief Justice Kennedy, members of the Supreme Court,
distinguished members of the bench gathered here from all around the state, and Judge Ed Scales, may it please the court. I told it I was taking a shot. I'm glad that there are a lot of folks from Miami here. Anyways, I'd also like to welcome members of our cabinet and our legislative leadership, as well as the loved ones and friends of Justices Muniz and Luck. I was so honored when my friend Justice Carlos Muniz asked me to speak to you all today. This is a special occasion for me, too. I formerly served as general counsel to Governor Scott, and when you're at GC, you get to speak at investitures from time to time. But today's pretty special, not just because this is the Supreme Court, but because Carlos has been a dear friend for many, many years. And I really wanted to provide some thoughts and insights about Carlos that I hope you will appreciate, and I hope that they really capture his character and personality. And I think a major theme of my remarks, which will come as no surprise to anyone who knows Carlos, is his combination of a great intellect and truly quiet humility. Carlos very rarely talks about himself or his legal achievements, and I'm pretty sure very few fully appreciate all that he has accomplished in his years of practice. So I originally wanted to title this speech, "The Little Known Yet Surprisingly Significant Legal Career of Justice Carlos Muniz." But Carlos is a humble guy, and I know he'd be mortified if I referred to his career as significant. So instead, I'm titling my speech, "Justice Carlos Muniz, He's Really Not As Boring As You Think." So, I would first like to talk about Carlos's professional accomplishments, and then talk about what I truly think in his case is more important, and that's his character. Carlos has a superb academic pedigree, which he rarely talks about. He attended the University of Virginia as an undergrad and Yale Law School. If you bring it up, he'll get a bit embarrassed. If you tease him, like I once did, he'll get a little defensive. One time I did that, he said to me, "Come on, man." So I went to UVA and Yale. It's not like I'm one of those insufferable Duke undergrad Harvard Law guys. And that was for the benefit of our friend Jesse Panuccio, who's here today, who's Duke undergrad and Harvard Law, and who's back in Florida after serving as acting Associate Attorney General in the U.S. Department of Justice. And Jesse, you know that although we give you some grief, we're really proud of you and proud to call you a colleague and a friend, and we're really glad you're back. And you all may have noticed Jesse has been doing a tremendous amount of great writing lately, and he has asked me to announce to you today that for a significant fee, he is available to speak at your judicial conferences, bar events, corporate retreats, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, first communions, county fairs, and even Renaissance festivals. So welcome back, Jesse. Now back to Carlos. Although Carlos has enjoyed significant success in private practice, and he's represented many high-profile public figures and institutions in private practice, I believe that his commitment to and success in public service is what best defines him. Carlos has a passion for it. It truly is his first best calling. Carlos believes in the importance of serving the people of Florida, the people of his state in general, and his country, even if it means great private sacrifice to him and his family. And Katie's nodding like, yeah, tell me something I don't know, Sirio. But on several occasions, Carlos made the sacrifice to leave the private sector and enter public service. First, he left the Washington, D.C. office of a prestigious worldwide law firm to serve as Deputy General Counsel to Governor Jeb Bush. He has served as General Counsel to CFO Tom Gallagher. He has served in senior staff leadership positions in the Florida House. He has served as Deputy Attorney General and Chief of Staff to Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's here today. And finally, he was confirmed by the United States Senate to serve as General Counsel to U.S. Department of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. And all this happened not because Carlos was connected or because he was a good self-promoter. In fact, I can say as his former law partner, he is an atrocious self-promoter to my own financial detriment. But no, our state and our nation's greatest leaders sought his advice because he was a superb lawyer who provided smart, exceedingly effective legal advice, which on several occasions, specific ones I can think of, allowed these leaders to navigate landmine-laced political and policy landscapes. And Carlos was not only a trusted legal advisor to some of these folks, he also was sometimes called upon to be a key author or architect of some pretty dramatic policy initiatives that implemented reforms in our state and sometimes our nation. But nevertheless, throughout all of this, he maintained his humility.
It remained intact. And I think his humility can be seen here today in this event. He and Justice Luck thought it was right and proper to combine their investitures to save their colleagues and the taxpayers' time and expense. And as a quick aside, I've been privileged to get to know Justice Luck over the last 3 or 4 years, and I think I can call him a friend. And he likewise, at least he displays humility. I'm 72% sure it's genuine, and it's really a pleasure to be here with him today. I once asked Justice Luck. I said, he serves on the Supreme Court with such amazing colleagues. I said, Robert, you've joined 4 giants of the Florida judicial landscape. You were appointed with 2 other superstars, Barbara Lagoa and Carlos Muniz, who have amazing pedigrees and nationwide reputations. And I'll never get his response with a contemplative expression. He just looked at me and said, yeah, they're all right. On the upside, though, I do want to come to his defense. He has gotten some heat for holding this investiture today, but it displays great humility to go forward because he's been nominated by President Trump to the 11th Circuit, and he's not taking confirmation for granted. That says a lot about him, and it's because he's a humble guy. And sure, for the rest of us, it's like being invited to a wedding celebration when after the groom has made his solemn vows and proclaimed his undying love for his bride, he gets engaged to someone else on the way to the reception. But that's beside the point. Life is funny like that, but all kidding aside, I know Robert is a great human being, and he's going to do great things for the Florida Supreme Court for at least several more hours to come. But back to Carlos, and I want to be serious here. A few words about his integrity and his character. My friend Carlos loves his God, and he loves his family, and he loves his country. And these come first in his life. This is the foundation of who he is, truly. He is also a friend of unwavering loyalty. And it is this love of God and family and country that shaped Carlos's character and formed him into the person he is day in and day out. The person who treats with kindness colleagues and strangers alike, and who does his best to approach all things with humility. And it doesn't matter that he's known as a skilled lawyer all over the country. It doesn't matter where he went to school or that many of his friends and colleagues are at the top of the business and legal and political community, or that he's a justice on the Florida Supreme Court. Go to breakfast with him, go to lunch with him, see how he treats the folks that he comes in contact with. When he walks in, you will see staff greet him with a smile and say, "Hi, Carlos." Most have no idea what he does. They don't. And I've seen him ask about, with particularity about someone's family member or something that they had been dealing with. And he knows their background. He knows these people because he's genuinely interested in who they are and what they do. And that's true with almost anyone he comes in contact with, regardless of their profession or their station in life. And that's a rare quality. And it makes me proud to call Carlos Muniz my friend. And it's probably not an overstatement to say, and I really hate to admit it, that as a practitioner, I admire Carlos more than any other lawyer I've ever worked with. And I'm not saying that because he regularly says the same thing about me. He has a keen intellect and an ability to really dissect and analyze a legal issue and arrive at a solution that sometimes is unique and always invaluable to clients. He figured it out, always figured it out. He's a gifted writer, and he has a style that makes even the driest subjects enjoyable to read. And he does all this while still remaining the good guy, the white hat, the steady, humble man who hasn't changed in the many years since I met him. And all of this is why I believe Carlos Muniz will be, and indeed already is, a tremendously gifted jurist. There's a verse from the Old Testament that I think is particularly appropriate for this occasion. It's Deuteronomy 1:16 through 17. And in this passage, Moses has been told by the Lord that he's about to die. And Moses takes the opportunity before he goes to remind the Hebrews about how the judges he appointed from among them should conduct themselves. And Moses said, "And I charged your judges at that time, hear the disputes between your people and judge fairly, whether the case is between 2 Israelites or between an Israelite and a foreigner residing among you. Do not show partiality in judging. Hear both small and great alike. Do not be afraid of anyone, for judgment belongs to God. And I love this passage because it speaks about being a bold and faithful and impartial steward of the law, even in the face of adversity, and to apply the law uniformly, regardless of a person's station in life. If this passage doesn't sound like an endorsement of the rule of law, I don't know what does. And I take great comfort, as should the people of Florida, in knowing that Justice Muniz believes in the preeminence of the rule of law, and that for his entire tenure on the bench, he will remain a faithful and a humble steward. To Katie, Robert, William, and Lydia, thank you for your sacrifices and supporting your husband, Katie, and your father, kids, so that he could take on this awesome responsibility. I know your love and affection has sustained him over the years and will continue to sustain him as he faces the challenges of his high calling in the years to come. And to my friend Carlos, Justice Muniz, in closing, it is my hope and prayer for you that you will continue to do what you have always done with unswerving ability. Read the law with insight and understanding, apply the law with wisdom and fidelity, and write about the law with skill and clarity. And I have every confidence that your tenure as a justice will be a blessing to your peers on the bench, to your profession, and the people of Florida. Sincerest congratulations, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tim. It is now my great privilege to administer the oath of office to Carlos Muniz. I will leave the bench and go to the podium for that purpose, and I'd ask Carlos to meet me there. As Judge Carnes indicated with respect to Justice Luck, Justice Muniz has been legal since January. He's been a member of the court since then, and it was my great privilege on that day when he was appointed to administer the oath of office to him then. And it's my privilege today to re-administer the oath for this ceremonial occasion. And I will say that I have performed no duty in my public life that has brought me as much satisfaction and joy than to administer the oath as a justice of the Florida Supreme Court to Carlos Muniz. Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida, that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state, and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida, on which I am now about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations. I will now return to the bench, and the marshal will escort Justice Muniz to the bench.
I just want to start off by saying thanks so much to everyone who came. Like Chief Justice Kennedy said at the beginning, there's too many former friends and colleagues and people I've worked for and admired for so long who are here. And when he said that we weren't going to go through name by name, I was thinking when I was a staffer in the legislature, we would be going through it name by name. We would be standing up and sitting down the whole time. But thanks for coming. And before I get started, I just want to thank my really, really dear friend Kim Case for that beautiful rendition of America the Beautiful. Kim is one of my closest friends, and she's been battling cancer for the last year successfully, and she's doing great and healthy and happy, and it means so much to me that you're able to be here and to share your God-given talents with all of us. So thank you. And Tim, thanks for that speech. Tim's assignment was to make fun of me, which I knew he would be able to do that really well. And Robert, I apologize for the collateral damage.
That's what I'm here for, colleague.
And Robert, really thank you and your family for letting me share this day with you guys. Jen, Julia, Jake, it's been so good to get to know you. Your dad is an amazing person. I've rarely met people who are as smart and hardworking and full of integrity as you, Robert. And for me to be connected with you and Barbara for my whole life because of our appointments being together means a lot, and I know that we're going to be friends forever. And it means a lot for me that we're sharing this day together. As I prepared for this investiture, my mind kept coming back to a line from one of my favorite meditations by blessed and soon-to-be saint John Henry Newman. Oh God, my whole life has been a series of mercies and blessings shown to one who has been most unworthy of them. That sentiment obviously goes far beyond my appointment to this court or any professional accomplishment. It extends to how I feel about my family and friends and colleagues from every phase of my life. On a day like today, it's impossible to avoid taking a panoramic view of what's important to you. So in these brief remarks, I'll spend most of my time on thank yous, then talk in a little more detail about some of the people who've been most influential in my career, and then close with a couple of thoughts about our work here on the court. I want to apologize in advance for saying me and I to an extent that would be unforgivable in any other context. Of course, I have to begin by thanking Governor DeSantis for giving me the privilege of serving on this court. Professionally, this is the honor of a lifetime. As I said on the day I was appointed, I appreciate Governor DeSantis' dedication to constitutionalism and to the rule of law, and it's especially meaningful to have been appointed by him. Thank you also to Senator Scott for assembling the Judicial Nominating Commission, and thank you to the commission members themselves and to everyone who participated in vetting the candidates for this position. It was a professional, thorough, and thoughtful process from beginning to end. Thank you to everyone who supported my appointment to the court and who encouraged me during the process. One of you here even wrote an op-ed for me, which was truly above and beyond the call of duty. I'll always be grateful for all the support and friendship that you guys showed me during that process. Thank you to my colleagues on the court and to all of you who work with us here. I had high hopes for this job, but it's already far exceeded my expectations. Everyone, my fellow justices, judicial assistants, both my own and other justices, judicial assistants, the law clerks, central staff, the clerks and marshals' offices, public affairs and library staffs, the office of the state courts administrator. Everyone has been welcoming and kind and helpful. My own team, Brooke, Emily, Jessica, and Meredith, make every day a pleasure to come to work. And I don't know if it's because of our semi-cloistered work environment, but for whatever reason, we really are a family here at the court. I especially want to acknowledge those of you who did all the hard work putting together this event today, especially Brooke Conlon and Betsy Johansson, who are the JAs for Robert and me, and Mark Miller at the Supreme Court Historical Society. Brooke in particular has really gone all out. She's going to be having a baby soon, maybe hopefully not this afternoon, but within the next week or two. So Brooke, thank you. I wish I could see you, but thank you very much for what you've done. Thank you to my colleagues from every phase of my career, both in private practice at Gray Robinson and McGuire Woods and in public service. That includes my former clients, some of whom have become treasured friends and are here today. And that's a thinly veiled reference to the general counsels of UF and FSU who are here and who became really dear friends through my work with them. I admire what you guys do for your institutions, and I'm so grateful that you're here today. And thank you to all the friends who've been so welcoming to my family and me here in Tallahassee for the past 20 years, especially the Shaw and Moore families. I first moved to Tallahassee not knowing a soul, and because of the kindness of people like you, this community has felt like home almost from the beginning. Most important of all, I want to thank my family. They've been the foundation of everything that I've accomplished in life. I've never lacked for love and support from my parents and my stepmom, my grandparents, my brothers and sisters and their spouses, my mother-in-law, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. I have a big family, so time doesn't permit me to talk about all of them individually, but suffice it to say that I love and I'm proud of all of them. I do want to spend a little extra time talking about my wife, Katie. Katie's the rock of our family, and she's a star. Everyone who knows us both will agree that Katie outshines me in every way, especially in the personality department. Yeah, I am, as Tim said, I am boring, I apologize. A lot of you know Katie from her days as the communications director for then Speaker John Thrasher and later for Governor Bush. President Thrasher, thanks for being here today, and thank you for always being so kind to Katie and me. It means a lot. I can't tell you how much goodwill I encountered in government and in Tallahassee simply by association with Katie. Since the birth of our first son, Katie has focused 100% of her energies on our family, including homeschooling our kids. She's been infinitely patient with me throughout all the twists and turns of life, and it's because of Katie that we have a wonderful home and wonderful children. Thank you, Katie, for your love and for all the sacrifices you've made for us. And speaking of our children, I can't imagine celebrating a day like this without Robert, William, and Lydia. I could go on talking about them forever, but it's enough to say that you're perfect. You're my greatest blessing and a source of immeasurable joy to Katie and me. I'm sorry for getting emotional. Finally, I want to say how much I appreciate the support, the good wishes, and the kindness that I've received from the Nicaraguan American community here in Florida. My father was born and raised in Nicaragua. This country welcomed him twice. First, when he came to the United States as a university student, and second in 1979, when he and many others fled Nicaragua to escape a Marxist and arbitrary government. The United States has also welcomed many other members of my Nicaraguan family, and they've thrived here. I love my father, and I'm proud of his resilience. My Nicaraguan heritage and my family are an integral part of who I am, and it gives me great satisfaction to know that my appointment to this court has been a source of pride to the Nicaraguan American community. I'd like to transition now to acknowledge some of the people who've had the biggest influence on me professionally. I know that this occasion is only possible because of the great leaders who trusted me and gave me opportunities to serve with them, who gave me credibility just by association with their good names. One of the great blessings of my career is that every position I had in public service wasn't just a job to me. In every instance, I felt that I was part of a team that was fighting for principles I believed in and for a larger cause. I never took a job in government just because I thought it might be a stepping stone to something else. This point actually brings to mind an experience I had when I was being vetted to work for Secretary Betsy DeVos. I explained to the interviewer that I had never planned to work for the Department of Education in Washington, and that instead my interest in the position was driven by admiration for Secretary DeVos and my desire to help her succeed. Without missing a beat, the interviewer deadpanned, "Carlos, it's obvious from your resume that you've had no plan." Anyway, I want my mentors to know how grateful I am for the opportunities they gave me and for allowing me to be a part of their team. I'd like to briefly share with you the traits that I most admire about each of them, the example that each set that I most want to live up to in my own life. For Judge Jose Cabranes, those traits are erudition and patriotism. For Governor Jeb Bush, those traits are an unparalleled work ethic, a belief in the value of public service, and a palpable love of our great state. For Attorney General Pam Bondi, those traits are empathy and an unbelievable ability to connect with others, an unwavering commitment to defending the Constitution, and the responsible use of the powers of her office. I'm not sure there's a position in state government that combines more discretion and authority in one position than the Attorney General. And Attorney General Bondi always exercised that discretion in a way that made me very proud to be a part of her team. PB, it means a lot to me that you're here to share this day. And for Secretary Betsy DeVos, those traits are personal grace, principled decision-making, and insistence on fairness and due process. There's a final mentor and friend who I'd like to say a little more about because he played such a unique role in the arc of my life, not just my professional life, but far more important things as well. And I'm sorry that this always makes me kind of emotional talking about this. On July 7th, 2000, I opened the Wall Street Journal to read one of my favorite columnists, Paul Gigot. The title of his column that day was "Stop the Presses, a Politician Gives Up Power." His subject was a Florida congressman I'd never met, but who happened already to be a political hero of mine. Gigot reported that this congressman would be leaving the House to honor a term limits pledge he'd taken 8 years earlier. The congressman was, quote, "a walking rebuttal to the claim that careers in Congress have to be long to be consequential," close quote. Gigot compared the congressman to Cincinnatus and called him impressive and eloquent. Asked what he'd learned in Washington, the congressman gave an answer that really resonated with me. "We do better when we show a little patience and humility." If this poor, unsuspecting congressman only knew what awaited him in life. Gigot ended the column by reporting that the congressman had already decided on his next job. He would be returning to Florida to serve as the general counsel to another of my heroes, Governor Jeb Bush. Of course, by now you all know that I'm talking about Chief Justice Charles Kennedy. It's not an exaggeration to say that it was that column that led me to apply for a job with Charles and Governor Bush, quit my job at a DC law firm, and moved to Tallahassee, for all intents and purposes sight unseen. It's hard for me to contemplate everything in life that flowed from a single act of grace, that one opportunity that Charles and Governor Bush gave me. Katie, our 3 children, our great life in Tallahassee, and certainly this investiture. I can trace it all back to that Potomac Watch column by Paul Gigot. Thank you, Charles, for your patience and humility and for everything else. I'd like to conclude by reaffirming my commitment to the judicial philosophy that I espoused before I became a member of this court. Throughout my career in public service, I worked with others to advance the idea that the people, not the courts, are in charge. That doesn't mean that we judges should be passive or reflexively deferential or potted plants. It just means that our fundamental role is to preserve, not to innovate, to respect the choices the people have made, either in the Constitution or where there is no conflict, through the actions of their elected representatives. I think Justice Neil Gorsuch's succinct advice to his law clerks is equally apt for us judges. Don't make stuff up. It's that simple. I say this in a spirit of humility, recognizing that people of goodwill sometimes will disagree on what's the right answer, and fully aware of my own imperfections. And so I'll end by asking for your prayers, specifically your prayers that I will have the character to practice what I've preached, and that my behavior as a justice will always bring honor to the great institution that I joined today. Thank you. I got my inability to control my emotions from my dad, so I apologize.
Thank you, Justice Muniz. The court now invites the Honorable Bradford L. Thomas of the First District Court of Appeal to go to the podium and deliver the benediction.
Chief Justice Kennedy, members of the court, may it please the court, I am honored to be here and was honored beyond measure when my friend Justice Muniz invited me to give the benediction, given that I am not a priest. But I'm delighted to be here, and Justice Muniz gave me permission to give just a tiny little background, and I met him in, I think, 2002 when I worked for Governor Bush, and I went into his office, and he had a poster of St. Thomas More. I believe it was a book cover on St. Thomas More by Peter Ackroyd. I had just read the book. And so we started a conversation. I was an Episcopalian, and I said, well, so obviously you're Catholic. And that started a friendship because we shared an interest in religion, theology, history, culture. And one day I came into my office on the 16th floor, and there was a book on my desk. Carlos is a great giver of books. On what Catholics believe. And I read that book that weekend and called the General Counsel of the Florida Catholics Conference and converted soon thereafter. So it's not often in life you owe something to someone that is the most important thing that can happen in your life. And that's what I owe to Justice Muniz, and I can never repay it. It's a dear friendship, but it's also a debt that I'll always treasure, obviously. Justice Muniz said, why don't you present the prayer of St. Thomas More, the lawyer's prayer? And I texted him and I said, well, should I modify it for judges? And being the strict textualist that he is, he said, no, you will stick to the text.
I said, so, Brad, do you think you can do better than Thomas More?
I think that was the rationale of that decision. As you can see, he has a great judicial philosophy. And not only that, apologies to Chief Justice Kennedy. I was incredibly impressed by his intellect. Having worked for Governor Bush, I don't mind people saying that he's the smartest person that ever worked for Governor Bush. I agree, Chief Justice Kennedy excluded. And with that, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, I'd like to present the lawyer's prayer of St. Thomas More. St. Thomas More, counselor of law, statesman of integrity, Mary Martyr, and most human of saints, pray that for the glory of God and the pursuit of his justice, I may keep confidential the secrets of my confidences. I shall always be keen in study, accurate in analysis, correct in conclusion, able in argument, loyal to clients, honest with all, courteous to adversaries, and always attentive to my conscience. Sit with me at my desk and listen to my clients' tales. Read with me in my library and stand beside me so that today I shall not, to win a point, lose my soul. Pray that my family may find in me what yours found in you, friendship and courage, cheerfulness and charity, diligence and duties, counsel in adversity, patience in pain, and their good servant and God's first. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Thomas. Now, before we end this ceremonial session, I've got 2 or 3 remarks to make. First, on behalf of the court, I want to extend our gratitude to Attorney General Ashley Moody for being with us here today, and also we're very pleased to have President of the Florida Senate, Bill Galvano. We thank you both for joining us for this ceremonial occasion. And I have this also. I want to ask everyone to join us for refreshments in the Rotunda, sponsored by the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society and the Dade County Bar Association. Second, I would like to thank each and every one of you who attended this event today. All of you are our special guests, the people we are here to serve and the reason we even exist as a court. And we are genuinely honored that you joined us here to witness a moment of Florida history as it happened. And I'd say this is a unique moment. And so we are grateful to you, and court is now adjourned.